I think that's also a quality of a great leader. Taking responsibility, acknowledging the situation, how it's affecting not just at patient zero, but then also how that's rippling into the community. So you need to be able to have that foresight to address any potential crises that could happen because of this one. So it just takes a lot of cognitive bandwidth to be effective leadership, and that's what we need right now.
Welcome to Independent Americans. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. Okay, Independent Americans around the country and around the world. This has been a very exciting summer for our movement. Now, I know a lot of folks are at the beach or checked out or just sick of politics, but independents are meeting the moment. They are leading the way. They are shocking a lot of the political establishment, and we're going to continue to cover it uniquely. We're going to continue our Meet the Independent Candidate series with a very special leader who is winning, who's won, who's put points on the board, is now going to the general, is very exciting, a dynamic leader that represents a lot of the best of what this country, the veterans, and the independent veterans community is all about. Joining us for the first time on Independent Americans, the great and powerful Danny Tarkenton is here on Independent Americans. Welcome, Danny.
Hi, thank you for having me, Paul.
It is really exciting to have you here. Folks don't follow you on social media. They should, because you've been chronicling what's been a really exciting couple of months.
Mhm.
You have now advanced into the general election as an independent in Washington in the middle of an epic series of wildfires and all kinds of other stuff. We're going to get into all of that and more. But let me just start with where are you and how are you after coming off ranking number 2, advancing to the general in the fall, really making history for our movement? Where are you and how are you, Danny?
I'm out in Cheney, Washington, so it's just right outside of Spokane, within the Spokane County, and I'm doing great. Very excited and uh, busy, but in a great way. So just very engaged with the community as well as studying and my research. So I'm excellent. Thank you.
So if you can, please give everybody the basics on your bio. You're an Iraq combat veteran. You served in the Army National Guard. You're now running for this office, but give everybody a bit more of your bio if they're just hearing about you or learning about you for the first time, please.
Sure. So I started off with a degree in philosophy from Gonzaga University. And then afterwards, I wanted to ensure my parents wouldn't pay for my student loans. So I enlisted in the Army National Guard, and I decided to enlist as opposed to commission because I have a lot of military in my circle and I was asking for their advice. And they would say, go officer because it's a cushier life. But then at the same time, they would say that they resented officers because they didn't understand them. And I felt that, well, I should enlist first and then I'll be an officer after my contract. And so I enlisted, came in as a specialist, and then left as a sergeant. And I loved being enlisted, actually. I think that was a great choice for me. I liked the grit. I loved the camaraderie. It's a lot of soldier care. I love taking care of soldiers. And then after I came back from basic, then shortly after I served in the honor guard for a little bit, and then I deployed to Iraq in 2016. I was a vertical engineer, so I was an interior electrician. We'd go around salvaging, repairing, building new installations all throughout Iraq, and it was a joint operation. And then came back. I was a training INSO for recruiting retention battalion, so I was prepping soldiers, 150 to 200 soldiers all throughout Eastern Washington, preparing them for basic. Observing them while they're in basic to make sure they were taken care of, helping them with weapons familiarization, chemical operations, and even, death by PowerPoint. I loved teaching. And then I had left the military. I got really sick after I came back from Iraq. Don't know why. And then I was thinking, what do I do? So I decided to get another bachelor's in psychology and a minor in developmental psychology. And I graduated summa cum laude. I think at that point, just trying to have a better understanding of how harm impacts the individual as well as the community. I was just very fascinated by that, just from my experience. And then, summer 2020 happened, and I was thinking, I think I would be more help to my community if I was an attorney. And so then I was applying for doctorate programs in psychology, but then I just stopped studied for the LSAT within a couple months, took it, and then got into law school, Gonzaga Law, within that same year. So it was a very, I've made this decision, so I'm going to do it. And then I, was in law school and I actually really hated it. So the only way to really get through it was to apply psychology to the legal question all throughout law school. So really it just kept building on itself. And then I, served externed at the Attorney General's office, so helping with Eastern or state hospitals with compliance and bylaws. And then I, worked at the Spokane County Prosecutor's office under a limited law license until I graduated, then became a deputy. Graduated law school with pro bono distinction, so providing more free legal services than what is required as a law student. And then, took the bar, passed it the first time, and then I worked inside that office, the county prosecutors, and then I just felt that we were automating everything and we weren't understanding how harm was impacting on both sides and how that impacts the community. So I left in August to get my master's in forensic psychology full time, to actually bridge those disciplines together. And so I'm finishing that up now. But in January, I felt compelled to run for Spokane County prosecutor. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's a lot. It's a lot. People say it's boom, 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 boom. Girl, stop.
No, don't stop. I mean, you have an established history of understanding people and communicating their problems and advocating on their behalf and fighting for the communities and people you care about, which I think really positions you well to be a highly effective candidate and an elected leader. And I want to get into the details of your election in a second. But before I do, so you decide to run. Talk about why you decided
Sure.
to do, after doing all that and achieving at high levels. Why did you decide to run for office, and why as an independent, Danny?
Well, with everything that's going on in our administration, and there's such a very, I think, divisiveness within our country when it comes to political parties. And I've worked in that office. I've worked with my opponent. And I think with everything that was going on, that if any of that were to come to Spokane County, any of the administration's agenda, that my opponent would pick his political party over his people. And I was raised here in Spokane. I moved here before I could read, and my blender years were here. So this is my home. And we swore to the Constitution. I swore it as an attorney, but I think when we swear it as a veteran, as a service member, we swear with the expectation of making the ultimate sacrifice for it. And I felt that as a local and as a veteran, those oaths don't expire. So I felt that it was my duty to step forward when nobody else would, to not just improve Spokane County, but also protect Spokane County. So that is also why I picked independent. That office should not be partisan at all. I don't think a political party should have any say in how that office decides to charge cases or how they choose to implement policy to protect public safety within Spokane County. So I I think that at the end of the day, because there's a difference between how you vote and how you're funded, right? So if you're campaigning and a political party backs you, then they are providing those funding and resources, but with the expectation that they take precedent over your people because they helped you get there. And by being an independent, if either party decides to come into my office and try to impose their agenda, I can politely tell them to go pound sand. So that is why I am very firm on being an independent.
I mean, the top topic is this insight into what you've been able to do, and I believe how it's an indicator for what we can see in the future, especially when the playing field is leveled like it is in Washington, especially when veterans come out and support other veterans, especially when we have compelling candidates. And I want to get to more of that in a second, but you also were running in the middle of historic levels of wildfires in Spokane. So can you talk about what it was like? That was getting a little bit of national attention, maybe not enough, but the whole area was experiencing these ravaging wildfires, and it was happening during the primary. right? And we
Uh-huh.
were trying to bring attention here on this show and as much as I could onto the fact that Washington is what a good primary looks like, an open primary, a fair primary where someone like you and the other four candidates that we endorsed at Independent Veterans America had a real shot. But we're trying to explain that while it looked like the whole state was on fire. So can you
Hmm.
talk about what it was like to run a campaign and just how folks are doing in your area right now after these wildfires?
Yeah. Well, I want to start by saying that, growing up here, if there's one thing Spokane County is really good at is stopping whatever they're doing, putting everything aside to help each other. That is just something Spokane County does. And I've seen it multiple times. And with something as devastating that has happened within our community, all came together. And it's very moving. And I mean, right now we're still trying to process the aftermath. The fires have finally, I think there's 97% contained last time I checked, and people are just trying to recover. But even then, though, was it 800 infrastructures gone? I think over 60,000 people within our community are displaced. And yeah, so it's going to take a long time to recover from this as a community. But as I said before, our community just puts everything aside to help each other. It's very moving. I love Spokane County. Um, so I wanted to start with that.
Yeah.
But
And can I just
as
say, while the election was happening, I think the fires were like 0% contained, right? It was
Mhm.
still pretty bad, and folks were going to the polls. So can you also give us a sense of like what did you see from people who were still voting in the midst of all that? I mean, I think it's a testament to that community and their dedication and their patriotism, and your supporters in particular who showed up despite the fact that the whole community was on fire.
Yeah, it had started with August 1st, and I remember that we were doing a parade for the Hilliard Festival, and you could see the plumes, and eventually we just all had to leave early. My spouse, he works for the Homeland Emergency Response Force here in Washington State, so I think after an hour after we got home, he was called, and he just now has been able to take a day off. And I think just during that time, yeah, I think it was I think that the areas that were impacted by the fires, you could tell that those individuals made sure to either check their ballot or to get a new ballot. You could see that towards the end with the 2,000 votes that showed up. And I still think that's pretty incredible to be that dedicated. Voting is our civic duty. So when people make that kind of an effort, I really respect that. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, you're voting. But it was really devastating. And I was reaching out to somebody who had requested a yard sign, and I'd finally gotten around to it when I came back from DC, and they had responded with, actually, our house burned down. So we don't, in our HOA now, won't allow us to have a sign at the moment. But I mean, the first thing is, how can I help you? What can I do? And they just said, we're yeah, we're taking care of each other. And yeah, so I just said, just, make sure to contact me anytime. But so sorry that that happened. But yeah, voters who wanted yard signs or what, they just didn't have a house to put them on.
Mm.
So it just all happened so fast. And you could really see it in the air. And it's not just wildfire smoke, it's houses. So paints,
Mm.
fumes, insulation, so dangerous. One of my MOSs in the military. So I was a 74 Delta and then a 12 Romeo. So chemical operations specialist. That's how my spouse and I met, actually. And then I was an interior electrician. So being able to understand the chemical impact what that's having on people's respiratory systems, like I said, this is going to take generations to recover from on multiple levels, different fronts.
Mm.
So just having that during the primary, and you want to be excited about the primary, but also you feel conflicted because of what's happening to your community. And so that makes campaigning, I think, just different, because campaigning is all about being excited and this kind of joy and celebration. But then when your community is devastated, how how do you make sure that you're being cognizant
Mm.
of what everybody's going through as a leader, in particular? So it's very interesting. Like I said, I was raised here. I've never seen this before. These kind of destruction.
Mm.
It's a very unique situation. So I hope I didn't go off on a tangent. I think I'm just processing it myself, I suppose. So
No, I think it's really, really important for people to understand the human side of this. This episode of Independent Americans is sponsored by Kalshi. We make predictions every single day. We talk about it on this show: politics, pop culture, the economy, the biggest stories making headlines all across America and around the world. Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, lets you trade those predictions in a live market. If you haven't checked it out, now is the time, especially around politics and the elections. Will Trump buy at least part of Greenland? If you think he'll do that before 2027 and you wager $100, it'll pay out $2,019.24. If you think it's going to be before January 20th, 2029, it's 17%. You can also pick whether or not you think the Republicans or the Democrats are going to win Congress. You can pick who you think the Democratic nominee will be, who the Republican nominee. It would be great to see if there's an independent nominee. There's a lot that you can wager on, but on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. It's fun. And if you listen to this show, you can stay ahead of the curve. So download the Kalshi app and use the code INDEPENDENT and get up to $500 in bonus credits when you trade 25, which is pretty good. Kalshi, 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 trade on anything. 18 and older, restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Independent Americans, now is the time. Check out Kalshi. And I think also to understand how the human side and the political side are intersecting, because you're built for this moment, right? Like you explained your extensive career in many different areas, from understanding toxin exposures to understanding the legal system. This community is going to need somebody like you. They're going to need someone like you out in front who can fight for them, but also someone who can understand them, someone who comes from there, and someone who can ensure that they're finding a way forward. And I think your story and your connection to the community is really, really inspiring, and they're going to need it now more than ever. But let's, if we can, Danny, talk about the actual election itself, because I think it was a bit below the radar. Washington is what I've said is kind of an example of what right looks like. There's only a couple states that have really, truly non-party driven open primaries where independents can be competitive. We talked about it on the show, but Independent Veterans America endorsed 4 veterans who were running on that day. You, Ronald McCoy, Aaron Croft, and Nate Powell. You and Ronald are both advancing. I think Aaron is a couple hundred votes away. Nate Powell has conceded since, but all 4 of you did well, right? And you, I think, exceeded expectations and maybe surprised some people. You are, as of right now, I know there may be some outstanding votes coming in, but you got 48.86 or so percentage of the votes. The Republican incumbent, Preston McCollum, got about 50.59. So, like, basically even. You're not a partisan. You're not a professional candidate. You come in, and I think you made a huge statement. Now, you both advance because that's how Washington works, right? The top 2 advance, and you will face off in November. But can you talk about your key takeaways and, frankly, how you were able to do this? How did you do this as an independent without a billionaire behind you, without big party infrastructure? How did you upset this apple cart and put yourself in the top 2?
I'm a community oriented prosecutor. So I don't stand above my community. I walk with my community. And I think that really distinguishes me between my opponent. Is I made sure I was everywhere, that I met everybody. And I think people really resonated with the fact that I am a different candidate. So I don't have a specific discipline. So my opponent does. All that my opponent really knows how to do is to try cases. That's a vibe. It's just not my vibe. And myself having that interdisciplinary, philosophy, psychology in particular, military experience, and then that forensic background with being able to prosecute cases. Just having that kind of very dynamic um, skill set really resonates with people. And I think that being an independent, I think a lot of people are disenfranchised by the political parties at the moment. And for me, it's as an independent, I'm only funded by the community. So, would you do you prefer to have somebody that you paid for in office or somebody that a political party paid for to put in office who takes precedent over your needs? I think that Spokane County is very unique in that sense. It seems like that is what Spokane County wants on regardless of whatever your political affiliation is. They want somebody that answers to them. They want somebody that understands the public safety within Spokane County, and I think that really showed up. I think we saw that in the results. I think at one point we were ahead of Preston over the weekend, which is very exciting. I'm not a career politician. I'm not doing this to be somebody. I'm doing this to do something, and that is to protect Spokane County as well as improve Spokane County. And I just think that that's universal. I think everybody wants that public safety. Look out for me, please.
Hmm.
So I can
I think
provide that.
that message is really important, and this is why it's so much bigger than just Spokane and your area. I mean, you are running against the establishment, you're running against both parties, you're running against an incumbent who I think was appointed to lead the office the first time, who I don't believe is a veteran, but is a partisan. So there's a real contrast here. Someone who's got a diverse background, who's done a lot of different things that will empower her to lead, or going with the status quo, checking the box, picking the partisan. And I think that what you're bringing is the kind of change that people want, whether, a lot of the extremists, I think, have gotten the microphone, whether it's Trump or it's the socialists. But there's a lot of folks who just want practical change, get shit
Hmm.
done change,
Yes.
community based change where people aren't indebted to a party or to a billionaire. And you're bringing that, Danny. Can you talk about, if you were going to talk to other politicians or other leaders in other states who are opposing this kind of a primary where an independent
Mm.
has a real chance, because this is, I think, an example. And there are partisans on both sides. We've talked about it who are trying to freeze out independents. We're recording this on Tuesday, where in Florida, 1 million independents will be blocked out. And they
Mhm.
had to change parties a month ago. The system is rigged against independents in so many places. But how important was it to your success to have this kind of a fair fight playing field?
I think this is a great example of showing that there is another option and we have to be able to provide that other option. I think that to block out somebody who doesn't want to be a part of the I would call it almost like a enterprise, like a business enterprise.
Mhm.
Who doesn't want to be a part of that, who doesn't want to answer to a political party but to only answer to to the people. I I mean I think I actually it's hard for me to comprehend why you would want to prevent independence from taking office. My brain has a hard time comprehending that because why would you do that? Why would you prevent a voice of the people from stepping into office? I thought everybody should be able to take office from any walks of life, but yet it stops at the door because you are not a Democrat or a Republican. As I think as a veteran, that's also hard for me to comprehend because we're supposed to protect our way of life, and that is so central to democracy and being able to represent your people. So yeah, it's I think by this primary just goes to show that people are disenfranchised and maybe both parties feel threatened by that. I don't know, but I don't work for them, so I don't care. So
They definitely feel threatened by that. And the fact that you don't care about what they care about is really, really refreshing. And I think a lot of folks are going to hear this conversation, and I hope it gives them hope, because I've been trying to bang on this drum for months that Washington is an example of what the future of America can look like. And what you saw in Spokane, where there was all this stuff happening around the wildfires, you saw these scrappy candidates who were most of them first-time candidates, but also a really like an ethically central part here. You're running for Spokane County prosecuting attorney. In what world should a prosecuting attorney be a partisan? I don't understand how people would accept a Democrat or a Republican,
Mhm.
a partisan in a role like that that's so central to fighting for the kind of the core values of a
Mhm.
community. Let me ask you a national level story that's somewhat related. The USS Lincoln is in the headlines right now. There's reports of bad conditions on its aircraft carrier. Has been deployed for 9 months. I've been away, so I haven't had a chance to sound off on it, but I think it's really critically important. I think almost every presidential administration has a moment where something gets screwed up, and whether it's the Walter Reed scandal, during the President Bush time, or it was the Shinseki backlog scandal during Obama, and then the president has a choice about how to handle it. And I think the way that Trump and Hegseth in particular kind of dismissing it, whether they have enough food or not, I don't know. Whether or not their morale is a 9 or a 5, I don't know. But I know the way they've approached it, I think has been a mistake and is really detrimental in kind of melding politics and our defense community in a way that is dangerous and unprecedented. But they also did the opposite of what you do. Like, you understand the community, you're running in there, you're explaining how you understand the toxins around a fire. These folks are like, there's no problem over there. They're all good. Nobody's
Mhm.
really jumping off an aircraft carrier. That's fake news. But can you talk about how a story like that, your reaction to a story like that? I know it's a national story, but your reaction to it, but also how you're uniquely positioned to advocate for people in a local way,
Yeah.
especially for veterans in Spokane, especially after something like the wildfires.
Mhm. Well, I want to be, mindful how I respond to this because everything is just so divisive and there's a lot of turmoil. But I think I think every veteran can resonate with this, and that is that just because you don't acknowledge that there isn't a problem doesn't mean that there isn't a problem. Like that, I don't think that's a quality of strong leadership. I think that strong leadership is one that can assess the crisis or the problem and then be able to respond to it, not react to it. I think that's really important. I think every veteran that that you ever come across understands that. And it's about, yeah, it's about responding. It's about making those really hard decisions, whatever they may be. Even if that's even taking some responsibility, I think that's also a quality of a great leader. Taking responsibility, acknowledging the situation, how it's affecting not just at patient zero, but then also how that's rippling into the community. So you need to be able to have that foresight to address any potential crises that could happen because of this one. So it just takes a lot of cognitive bandwidth to be effective leadership, and that's what we need right now.
Here, here. Cognitive bandwidth to be an effective leader. Like, that's what your T-shirt should say, Danny. Right? Like, I have the cognitive bandwidth to be an effective leader in crisis. I really think that's important because it's
Thanks.
underestimated.
Something good, oh, something sweet. Feel the fire.
Danny, we always talk about something good, and I'm going
Mhm.
to go first, and then I'll throw it over to you and ask you for something good that you saw from the campaign or
Well,
from your community. And I may have used this one before, but for my something good today, you and your campaign and your community are something good. I mean, every element of it, from the open primaries to the people who came out to vote in the wildfire to your leadership, is really something good at a time when people are very divided, they're very cynical, they're very skeptical. It's going to be really interesting because I think we're going to have Jesse Ventura on tomorrow, the day after you, to talk about what he thinks about all of this happening. But, in many ways, he kind of broke the seal for veterans to run as an independent, to bring people together and give people a hope for an alternative. And I think you're really doing that, Danny. I mean, everybody who hasn't been following you on social media should, because seeing your updates from inside this mechanism that is an election as an independent, I think is really, really instructive and about something so much bigger than just your community. You're going to run in November, and I hope you win. And I'm going to do all I can to support you, and everybody should do the
thanks.
same. But I also, I hope that you do more and go beyond that because you're such a powerful leader for your state and for our community. I hope this is just the start of something great for you. But that's my something good. That was a lot. Over to you, Danny Tarkenton. What's something good?
Something good. I think what's been so wonderful about this campaign is not only just being immersed back into my community because after deployment I became pretty isolated, and I think a lot of veterans know, and kind of know what I'm talking about when you come back. And by doing this campaign, because I felt so compelled to protect my community, is now being so engaged with my community again. And I think that's just been really wonderful. And what I really have liked about this campaign in particular is how it in itself is a community campaign, because we've had multiple candidates come together. So even with the Cheney Parade, there was Luke Jasmine running for the 3LD. We had Natasha Hill, who is an elected official. We had Aaron Croft that was there, and we had Kevin Fagan, who's running for Congress. We had Elliot Robinson. I mean, and we were all walking in that parade together. So what I think is so inspiring is, and maybe it is because I'm running as independent, is that this is more of a movement so much as an election. And I think that's really good. I think that's a good something to mention.
It's very good to mention. I'm going to mention it often. We were keeping folks updated as your race unfolded. We'll continue to do that. I hope we can have you back on before the general in November. But Danny, let me give you the mic and give you an opportunity for folks, whether in Spokane, whether in Washington, whether they're around the country or around the world. How can they support you and help you finish the job here and win this election in November?
Well, it's all about voter outreach. So if you don't have the dime, provide the time. So volunteering, phone banking, text banking, canvassing, events tabling, or if you don't have the time to do it, how much would you pay to not do it? And that helps with donations. So because we are going against the establishment, we only get funding from the community. So that funding goes towards, again, voter outreach. So it goes towards radio, digital advertising. It goes towards billboards. Also go towards the lit that we have to purchase for our canvassers. And so everything that we need and support is just to help with voter outreach. So even if you don't have either of those things, just telling your friends about me, 5 of them, and then tell them to tell 5 of their friends. Even at the end of the day, that's it. We just need people to come out and vote in order to be successful. This election is really important. County prosecutor is the one who enforces our election laws here in the county. So it's really imperative that we elect somebody who has sworn to protect it, and protect it so much as to make the ultimate sacrifice. My opponent can't say that, but I can. So that's how important this is. So at the end of the day, vote, tell 5 of your friends to vote, and then tell them to tell 5 of their friends to vote. So.
Yes, do all the things, dimes and time. Danny Tarkenton is running for Spokane prosecuting attorney in Spokane, Washington. She is a thunderbolt of positivity. Her campaign is a movement, and I hope it's inspired you as much as it's inspired me. I know you're just getting started, but you're really, really a light of hope this summer, Danny, especially for your community. It's so much bigger than this election. I know they're proud of you. And I think they're going to be even more proud of you when you win this thing in November. So, folks, there'll be a link in the show notes. We've been proud to endorse Danny at Independent Veterans of America. If you want to run like Danny's running, follow her lead. You can go to Independent Veterans of America, sign up to run next year, sign up to run in the future, sign up to help Danny and the other candidates who are running. But you're what it's all about. And you have the cognitive bandwidth that this country needs right now, Danny. We need your cognitive bandwidth right now more than ever.
Thank you. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much, Paul.
All right, go get him. Danny Tarkenton, stay vigilant. Thank you, everybody. This is Independent Americans. Share the word, spread the word, subscribe, do all the things. Follow us on socials, independentamericans.us, and it's all linked in the show notes. Keep spreading the word. We will be back with a new episode tomorrow. I believe we will have the great Jesse the Body, Governor Ventura will be here. Independent voice. He's going to have a lot to say about a lot of things, so you want to tune in for that. Until next time, stay vigilant, America. Stay vigilant.
He tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wake, it's time to grow. And it's not cool to believe in school, but if I can say one thing, I've seen the children of the revolution and the good trouble they can bring. He says the red and blue are dead and independent is an attitude. An island in the sea of rhetoric and archipelago. He tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wait, it's time to grow.
Powered by Righteous Media.